Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, when you're a working musician, the job is never done. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more, as always. My name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals, and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to assume that you do because you're listening right now. You can subscribe to the podcast. You can find us over at Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, basically wherever you get your podcasts. And plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would really appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we're on Instagram at either at In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I say this a lot, but it's true, it's the most important, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest in the world of film, television, and basically the moving image at large. Because if we love to watch about it, and if we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it when you come and read about it and listen about it. So please pay us a visit and stop on by. On this episode, we got an interesting one. It's a documentary that just had its world premiere last night at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, and it's called Peter Case, A Million Miles Away, from director Fred Parnes, and it chronicles the vast career of Grammy-nominated Peter Case. And it's really an interesting look at sort of his beginnings from as a street musician through all his bands, including like the Nerves and The Plimsouls for people who know, but also his Grammy-nominated solo career. And we tend to walk in the shoes of the man that are brilliant and elusive and occasionally infuriating, but we really get a sense of how unforgiving the landscape of the music business can be, and how to be a working musician is an achievement in and of itself that tends to get overlooked. But it's a fantastic film, and like I said, we had I didn't say, but we had the unique pleasure of sitting down with director Fred Parnes to talk about the origins of the story and just how he got connected with Peter and why he wanted to tell this story, and so very much more. We had a great talk, which I hope you enjoy. But if you're anywhere near the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, they are having another screening tonight at 8:20. I don't know if there's any tickets left, but you can always check it out. But I know it'll be doing its festival run, and it'll be available on video on demand, no doubt, at some point in the near future. But first off, please enjoy our talk with Fred, because between you and me, it's a good one. Fred, obviously, first off, man, just want to say thank you for the time today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to see you. Love your show. I listened to the King of Comedy episode yesterday.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Good conversation.
No, I mean, obviously, congrats on the movie. But I mean, I guess my first question is just walk me through telling this story, because I mean, he doesn't strike me as a guy who would necessarily want the camera in his face. I could imagine this was a few conversations to get it going.
Yeah, well, it was a long process, it took some time, but with the doc, you just keep gathering whatever you can get, So we started with some conversations with Peter, then we had some conversations with other people, then we got some archive, just piece by piece, you just start building up this mound of clay, and you start, the film start, the idea and the themes start taking shape as you gather more stuff. So also the relationship evolves. So maybe in the beginning, maybe the conversations weren't as incisive and open and everything, but as we got to know each other better, and the trust increased and the rapport got closer, the conversations got very deep, and I think he actually enjoyed the process.
No, and I mean, I think that definitely comes through as well. And I mean, I'm curious on your end though, like particularly what made you want to tell Peter's story? Because I mean, even in watching it, I was like, oh yeah, that was his song. Oh yeah, that was him. Like there was a lot of it that was like sort of resurrecting a lot of memories of his music that admittedly I'd kind of forgotten.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because I sort of came to the Peter as a subject from the side door. It started with Chris Seafried, who's one of the two producers, along with Jordan Krause. Chris is a very talented musician in his own right, a songwriter and a band leader and a producer. He and I had worked together on a couple of projects. I released some of his songs for a project, and he composed some. Shut up. And
I have one too. It's okay.
He composed cues for another thing, and we really wanted to do something together. So we were just spitballing ideas and coming up with different possibilities, and we had sort of had a checklist of like 5 things that we thought we needed, all 5 for it to be worthy musically and cinematically. And a lot of ideas sort of came through the process that didn't quite make it for us. And I was going through my records one day, and I ran into Peter's brilliant second record, The Man with the Blue Guitar. And I said to myself, why did I lose the scent on this guy? It's the only record of his I have. I love this record. I'd forgotten about it. And I sort of felt like there was a mystery there right away. It's like, how did I lose the track? Because usually if I love a director or if I love a musician, I want to have all their stuff. I want to, I'm a completionist. I just need to see everything that the artist has done. So I thought maybe he'd become a writer, a novelist or a poet, because his writing is so vivid and so distinct. But I looked him up on Amazon, and sure enough, there was like 14 more CDs. So I ordered them all, and as they came in, I was just gobsmacked by how great they all were.
Right.
So now it wasn't a case of he wrote himself all out the first 2 albums. This is an artist who's been releasing and recording, writing, and releasing exceptionally great material for decades. So I just contacted him through his website. I went up to Chris and I went up to Berkeley. He had a performance at the back room, a very intimate room, 120 seats maybe, and we saw him just destroy that room. I mean, they were hanging on every song, every story, the banter between the stories, the humor, the camaraderie afterwards when people came up to have a CD signed, and just knew right away, here's a guy with a storyteller's flair, with a sense of humor, and with a story and a sense of mystery about how he started out in this, remote corner of upstate near Buffalo, New York, and made his way across the country and down to LA and had these experiences with formative groups, like the Plimsouls and the Nerves, and then wound up a solo performer. We just sensed right away that there was a story to be told here.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And I mean, I love what you say about being a completionist. I'm the exact same way. And I mean, I think this really is an interesting sort of tale of just how many sort of artists, like really talented people, tend to, I mean, I don't want to say fall by the wayside, because I mean, that's almost disrespectful, but tend to get forgotten in sort of the go pop culture ethos if they don't have sort of that sustainability from hit to hit to hit to hit, which, is like, it's a crapshoot on the best day, especially in the music business. I'm kind of curious, like, as the more you talk to him, did he have a sense of sort of his place in the business? Because I mean, I definitely felt he was very sort of philosophical and sort of on the point of like, this is what I do, this is how I'm going to do it, and this is how it's not going to kill me. I mean, especially given sort of that he had heart issues later on in life.
Right. Well, I think that, when you're a musician, there's so many people who have a song in them, and make an attempt to try to make that their life, so they can really just, dedicate themselves to their craft and the joy of performing and recording. But only a few can get to the point where they can continue to do it, sustain their life like that. And Peter does that. I mean, he's been a working musician for 4 decades, and he has a very, very devoted and very dedicated following of people who come out to the shows and buy the CDs, and it's allowed him to really do what he loves to do. And success is really one of the themes that I was interested in. I can even relate it to my own career, my own life in film, and not that I've accomplished anything on par with some of the brilliance of Peter, but I sort of felt that same sort of struggle to define what is success. There are people who sell, platinum, who ship platinum who somehow feel that they are not successful, that they're not respected enough. And there are some people who play in the street corner who feel like, I'm living my dream. Peter's neither of those. He has a really nice slot right in the middle of there, being a working musician who's out there doing his thing, and people come out and listen. And I find it a very triumphant story, and a very, to me, it's a success story. So
I agree.
Interesting conversations with people, if they evaluate it as a success, as a triumph, as sad, is it happy? I think it's probably all of those things, because life in the arts is tough. But for Peter, I think it's a great career story.
Well, and I mean, it's a success. It's a success story in a way, just because, I mean, he definitely reached a point where he didn't need to be that guy who was making it onto Letterman. Like you say, he has sustained his career being a working musician, playing smaller houses, but killing it every night and making a living doing that. And I mean, it really does speak to sort of, I guess maybe the necessity of understanding, like you said, levels of success, sort of in the entertainment businesses in general. Not everyone's going to be walking the red carpet or doing this or winning awards, but if, you're paying the rent and you're feeding yourself and you're doing what you love, then that's success.
But it's funny because I made a documentary about another act called the Persuasions. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Yes,
they were an a cappella group. Same thing. I mean, J. Otis Washington, who's one of the singers in the group, said to me at one point, just staying in the business. We're just staying in the business. We have our following. We go out there. We play these clubs. We have these audiences that come out. They buy our records. We're not staying at the Grand Hotel, but we're doing our thing. And, that was our dream, and we're living our dream. So to me, my hat's off to anybody who can, live their dream, and especially at the level of Peter, because a singer-songwriter, sometimes you just feel like there's only a finite number of songs a person can have. I mean,
right.
How many, if you're not, in a big ensemble, I mean, how many different songs can you write? But some people just have that, that musical expression that even within that limited frame, just a man and a guy or a girl with a guitar and maybe a harmonica or a piano can continue to write compelling songs. And a lot of it's because he's so brilliant with words. His poetry is just really stunning. And just keep creating, and just album after album, you're like, wow, 14 more great songs. Yeah.
I've got to imagine on something like this, getting Peter to ultimately say yes is probably your biggest source of archival research, because I'm always fascinated in just sort of digging back and finding the footage from so many different bands and all the music and everything that he's been a part of. Can you walk me through, I guess, some of your research process where you had to sort of really dig in and sort of create this track so we could see sort of Peter's life?
Yeah, well, we had some great fortune. There's footage from his early street performer days in San Francisco, because Bert Devert, who played with him on the street, had the foresight or just the inspiration to hire a cameraman and a sound person. And he made a 30-minute short called Night Shift, which he generously offered us to use as much as we wanted. And that's how we have this footage of a 21-year-old Peter playing on the corner of Geary and whatever in San Francisco. And then other stuff just fell into our lap. There was Jordan, one of our producers, who's really spearheaded the search for archival. He gets somebody hits him on Facebook and says, I bought a locker from somebody full of old tapes, and one of them is like an old beta tape of Peter Case opening up for Jackson Browne in 1985 or something. Do you have any interest in it? Yeah, we definitely had some interest in it. The tape was so old I had to bake it just so we could play it.
No,
just so the oxide wouldn't fall off. But we found it. We found this fantastic footage of Peter as I went back when he was opening up for Jackson Browne after his first album came out. That was a gift. And Jordan really is really like an indefatigable tracker down of any archival material. He'll follow any lead, and his dedication and his hustle really served us well, because we had so much archival to use. In contrast, the Persuasions film, which I referred to before, that was in 95. There was no YouTube. There was no computer. We had like one 8x10 of them when they were like just starting out, which I think we used like 14 times, top to bottom, left to right, in and out. We shot it like every conceivable way because that's all we had. But now we had this embarrassment of riches, and a lot of people just really stepped up and said, oh, people who love Peter really love him. He might not have everybody's love, but the people who follow Peter really love him, and a lot of them just stepped up and said, what can I do? What can I give you?
No, and I mean, that's a beautiful thing at the end of the day. And I mean, I think that's what makes this a success story, like you said. And I have to admit, perversely, I find a great deal of joy in the fact that, I mean, especially in the film industry, we hear of 4K restorations from original film negatives and yada, yada, yada. But on the opposite spectrum of that, there's resurrecting old beta tapes in multi grid lockers to get footage. I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing about documentary. You can pull from anything. You can have iPhone footage to old betas to beautifully shot 35 to digital. It's a big smorgasbord of different medium.
Now, I mean, I got to ask because and we've talked about this a little bit. Just this is very much a success story, but it's not necessarily that quote unquote flashy success story. It's an honest one. And I'm kind of curious, for you as a filmmaker, as a documentarian, what are the kind of stories that sort of got you hooked and made you want to be a filmmaker?
Wow. Well, I've been a music and film fanatic just from the beginning. I like to say that I go to sleep thinking about music and I wake up thinking about film. So to me, to be able to do the two things together in a project is always a thrill. And even the narrative stuff that I've done, I've always paid particular attention to the music, to soundtrack and for cues and for music. It's really what drives me. I mean, it's just, and the kinds of, I'm all over the place with what kinds of films I like. I mean, I love European art film. I love Asian cinema. I love classic Hollywood stuff, and screwball comedies. And I like some of the new stuff that's coming out. It's just, I'm just always ready to see something that could be interesting. Musically, it's the same thing. I mean, I love Peter's kind of, that sort of acoustic based stuff. I love rock and roll. I love jazz, classical. I'm just like open to anything. And if it affects me, then, it stays with me. And if not, I just move on to the next thing.
From a style of music documentary, it does feel like this area where we say it's a success story, but like we say, quote unquote, it's not the flashy success story. It feels like it's rife with opportunities for bands and artists to try to track down and sort of document their tales. Like, is there anybody on your wish list whose story you'd want to tell one day?
Chris and I have a television like a series idea,
right,
where we would really, we have that house band that we've used in 2 different films,
right,
which and Lady Blackbird, when they sing Two Angels in our movie, they're sort of
fantastic. Yeah,
she's fantastic. It's a protege of Chris's. He's her band leader, and they write together. And she's obviously a force of nature, just an absolutely stunning singer, and just a great musical presence. But we have this band, so we have an idea of a songwriters on songwriting type program where we could sort of break down that sort of interview feeling you get in a lot of those kind of programs, and really have an artist like talk about their process, and maybe take one song and really break it down and just talk about what makes it work and how it really, where it came from, and have them perform it with our house band at the end of the episode. So that's not a specific artist. We have many artists on the list who we'd love to speak to, people, everybody from, I'd love to have Donald Fagen from Steely Dan, which is such a great musician, and I'd love to have Bob come in. I'd love to have Joni Mitchell come in. There's so many people that I would love to talk to. So it's endless. I mean, there's so many people with story to tell, and just I'd like to give them an opportunity to just really talk about the process. I'm always fascinated. There was a clip once on the Dick Cavett show years ago. Wait, that's before many people's time, but the Dick Cavett show was a big thing. And he had Paul Simon on. And Paul Simon was working, I think it was Still Crazy all these years. But he hadn't finished the song yet. And he's got his guitar and he's showing Dick how I've got the song, but I don't know where to go in the bridge. And he's playing it and you're hearing it. It's like coming out, like he's still working on it, you know? And he said, well, and here I can go to a C sharp minor flat, or and then, but Dick Cavett seems to always want to say, make a joke out of it. Oh, well, I always want to go to the flat 7 on a Friday night, you know. And I'm thinking, could you just step aside and let him take us on his journey? So that's what we'd like to do, is have a show where we step aside and find out where he wanted to go in the bridge. You know what I mean?
Oh no, absolutely, man. I would love to see that for sure.
Right.
Now, I'm always struck by especially music docs, and seeing like this story and songwriting. And these kinds of artists are storytellers, obviously. You are a storyteller, but in a different medium. And I'm kind of curious, what is it about music that always ends up so cinematic? Because again, when you're listening to Peter's stuff, there are some times where you don't necessarily need to worry about composing a shot. You just need to get out of the way.
Yeah.
What is it from your perspective that makes music so big from a storytelling standpoint?
Well, you know, music just, it you know, the way music affects people is kind of unique, because you can really close your eyes, you know, and feel that song, and you sort of, in your mind, you just go someplace. It's unlike theater or film, or, you know, it just, you have this like personal reaction to the way chord and melody and song and the timbre of the voice and the instrumentation. You know, I find that, you know, certain songs like truly affect me physically, you know, and so, you know, with a song, sometimes you don't want to do too much. I mean, you know, when you're filming somebody doing the song, just stay right there. Let them tell the story, you know. People have a tendency to want to, you know, get restless and you want to move the camera around and do circles and come up and down, you know. But if the musician really has a story to tell, let them play. Get out of the way. I like what you said before, get out of the way. Sometimes, it's like Miles Davis used to say, sometimes the right note is no note at all, you know? Yeah. Sometimes the silence is the right note. I think with the combination of film and music, it's just know what not to do sometimes. Just don't get too complicated. Let the musician take the spotlight. So, I mean, now that the film is done, and I mean, obviously it's getting ready to go on its festival run, and I don't want to say he went anywhere, but obviously it's kind of be reintroducing Peter into the world. Do you feel like you're at the brink of your moment of staying out of the way and just letting Peter, the music and his story, do the work? Absolutely. I mean, it's, you know, it's Peter Case. I mean, above the title, it just says Peter Case. And, you know, I'll point out that I don't use the possessive credit of a Fred Parnes film or a film by Fred Parnes. I really feel that's sort of disrespectful to not just the people I work with who work so hard, but to Peter, because in a way it's a film by Peter Case, because there's no film without Peter Case. So it's just Peter Case, a million miles away. Yeah, I mean, all attention should go to Peter. It's all, if I did my job right, they want to talk to Peter. You know, I'm hoping that it generates excitement in people who weren't familiar with him, and for the people who are familiar with him, that it makes them go, you nailed his story. I think you really got something through. I mean, you can't really tell somebody's whole story. You can tell for sure, part of their story, your impression of their story, or his story as it comes through my experience. Because as a director, you know, some of my choices and the way I construct things is going to have, you know, it's going to affect the way the film, you know, plays. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's all about Peter. Well, you know what, Fred, I just want to say, man, congratulations to you and your team for making me excited about Peter and his music and this story, because it just reminded me of sort of the magic that really is out there when you're paying attention and you're looking, and in this go-go sort of media landscape where we're basically being run over by content at a daily basis, it's easy to forget about things. Yeah. But thank you for the work, and thanks for the time today, man. This was fun. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Great questions, great conversation, and thanks for having me.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.